Hold on, because before Prince Harry could even picture stepping through another palace door, everything reportedly flipped behind closed doors. Not because of another shocking interview, not because of another family feud, but because King Charles allegedly made one completely unexpected decision that absolutely nobody expected. The rumors spreading across royal circles insist the king has quietly shifted from seeking reconciliation to protecting the future and stability of the monarchy itself. And if those whispers are even remotely true, Harry's royal future isn't just uncertain anymore. It's hanging by a thread.
Desperation and failure. And Meghan is someone who is desperate for fame. She's desperate for recognition. She's desperate for money, of course, and status.
People think she's being so clever. However, royal sources now revealing that they are so terrified about a potential stunt involving her meeting with King Charles that there are suggestions they may even ask her to hand over her devices.
Everything's just fake, isn't it? And that's part of the problem of why the brand is not working. Sorry about this noise. Yeah, it'll stop. But this is really why the brand is not working, because clearly people are just seeing right through this and thinking, this is rubbish. Of course, given the fact that if she was so desperate to want to make amends inside the British monarchy.
And of course, then there's Thomas Markle, who, it's just cruel at this point. Meghan is, the longer this goes on, is just cruel.
And Prince William's own position, which I think is absolutely steadfast on this, will say you can come, but you won't be seen with us, and you won't be seen in any royal context, and you better behave on these terms. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
The second those reports surfaced, people stopped asking whether father and son would finally reunite. Instead, one much darker question stole the spotlight. Why would palace insiders supposedly treat a private family meeting like a classified security mission? Why would phones reportedly be left outside? Why would every conversation suddenly become something needing protection? Those aren't the precautions people take when trust still survives. Those are the precautions people reportedly take after years of fearing every private conversation could become tomorrow's front-page headline. Suddenly, it felt as though King Charles had reached one heartbreaking conclusion. Family could wait. The crown could not. Every decision inside the palace suddenly seemed to hide another secret. Every delay looked carefully planned. Every silence echoed louder than any official statement. While the world kept talking about forgiveness, a completely different story was quietly unfolding behind those palace walls. Many believed the king's advisors had finally convinced him that every emotional decision now carried lasting constitutional consequences. The monarchy was no longer reacting to Prince Harry's moves. According to growing speculation, it was quietly preparing for a future that might not include him at all.
That Charles wants to have some sort of reconciliation because he is weak and he's ill, and he somehow rightly feels that Harry is somewhat feeling sad for himself and somehow wants to make amends. But I don't believe that they're going to give them what Meghan really wants.
But that is not how the people watching this most closely are reading it. The phrase being used over and over isn't reunion. It's crawling back on bended knees. According to commentators tracking every move, they've hit a wall.
So I think we're seeing them effectively crawl on bended knees back to Britain, and they are to some extent going to be...
That carefully polished story about healing suddenly started falling apart. The picture everyone desperately wanted to believe, a son returning to stand beside his father, was suddenly challenged by a completely different narrative. Palace watchers began noticing that absolutely nothing official was actually happening. No confirmed invitations, no confirmed...
threatening to bring the children. And again, that ridiculous post the other day of them both turning inwards. It just becomes tedious, doesn't it? The fakery with the smudging and the Photoshop. You think, just grow up. Everything now...
Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about reconciliation anymore. It turned into a battle over leverage. Some insisted Prince Harry was genuinely searching for peace. Others believed the palace was seeing something completely different. They claimed King Charles wasn't simply judging his son anymore. He was measuring risk. Every decision now reportedly carried enormous consequences for Prince William, Catherine, Princess of Wales, the future king, and eventually the next generation.
In terms of the finances, that everything these two chances, that these two grifters have said before have been chucked out the window. But what's interesting is the Express is also reporting that Harry and Meghan have had to take on a new crisis management team, given they know how Brits really feel about this visit. With the headline here, Meghan Markle's bombshell make or break plan to win the UK back over, Markle hiring a team of PRs in order to do so. Let me just tell you right now, it doesn't matter what you're paid, these PRs should turn down the job because some missions are just impossible.
Then another shocking piece of the puzzle supposedly slipped into place.
Technically, 2 more years before you can fail in a business. Your business can lose money for 5 years and you get massive write-offs. At the end of the 5 years, it's done. She's got about 2 more.
If opportunities beyond the royal spotlight were becoming harder to secure, staying close to the monarchy suddenly became more valuable than ever. That theory spread like wildfire as commentators argued that royal connections remained the couple's greatest currency. Whether fair or unfair, the speculation refused to fade away. Then came the moment that completely changed how everyone viewed the entire situation.
I think this whole thing has just been a last-minute desperate attempt, like throw everything that they've got. They know they're pretty much doing their swan song. In my opinion, everything has just turned to absolute ash, and it's the last thing they've got, and they've just thrown it all in a big ball. They've given pretty much, 3 weeks notice?
That was the moment rumors exploded, claiming King Charles had quietly approved an entirely different strategy. Instead of rushing into another emotional reunion, he was allegedly putting every future interaction through one simple test. Would this strengthen the monarchy or weaken it? If the answer wasn't absolutely clear, the meeting reportedly would never happen. It wasn't being presented as revenge. It was being portrayed as pure survival. And if that unexpected move was actually real, it changed absolutely everything. Because Prince Harry was no longer waiting for a father's forgiveness. He was waiting for a king's decision. And behind palace walls, those are two completely different things. The deeper people dug into the situation, the stranger the entire story supposedly became.
She didn't want to listen to people when she was behind the palace walls. You know, she just careers on ahead and she chooses the path that she wants to take and then blames everybody when it doesn't go the way that she wants it. I mean, we heard when she was going to Australia, she was going to, I don't know if this was actually truthful or whether this was made up, but she apparently had humility training to help her come across as more compassionate.
It was no longer just about whether Prince Harry would ever be welcomed back into the palace. The real question had become what kind of return would even be possible. Rumors started spreading that every request, every appearance, every photograph, and every private conversation was now being judged by one invisible question. Who benefits the most from this moment? That single idea completely transformed the atmosphere. Instead of a family preparing for an emotional reunion, it felt as though two completely different futures were quietly colliding behind closed doors. One future fought to protect tradition at any cost. The other desperately needed one final royal connection to keep the story alive. Whether those rumors were fair or wildly exaggerated barely mattered anymore, because public perception had already taken control. The palace's silence only added more fuel to the fire. No dramatic denials, no emotional speeches, only carefully calculated distance. And the longer that silence continued, the louder the speculation became. People started wondering whether King Charles had quietly realized that every compromise made today could become tomorrow's biggest regret. Once trust disappears inside a family that also happens to be one of the world's oldest institutions, every handshake suddenly feels like a gamble. Every smile carries hidden risk. Every photograph becomes a piece of potential history. That was why so many royal watchers insisted the king's unexpected move was never about punishing Prince Harry. It was supposedly about drawing a line that could never be erased again. Then the spotlight shifted toward Prince William, and suddenly another layer of the mystery emerged. According to growing palace whispers, the Prince of Wales had no interest in dramatic confrontations or emotional speeches. His strongest weapon was simply keeping his distance. While everyone else debated reconciliation, Prince William reportedly remained focused only on stability. Those closest to the future king were said to believe that rebuilding public confidence mattered far more than repairing private relationships. That belief completely changed how people interpreted King Charles's alleged decision. That alleged decision suddenly looked like much more than one father's heartbreaking choice. Perhaps it marked the beginning of a carefully planned transition that placed the future of the crown above every personal emotion. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's position appeared increasingly fragile inside the endless rumor mill. Every attempt to reconnect was met with suspicion. Every public appearance sparked another wave of questions. Was it genuine? Was it strategic? Was it necessary? The speculation became impossible to escape. The harsh reality was that once doubt enters the conversation, every move starts looking like proof for somebody else's theory. That was exactly the trap many believed Prince Harry had fallen into. Even his sincere gestures were now being judged through years of accumulated controversy, interviews, documentaries, memoirs, and public accusations. Fair or unfair, the narrative had become almost impossible to control. Then came the biggest twist of all. Palace insiders supposedly began whispering that King Charles had quietly accepted something he had resisted for years. Not every broken relationship can be repaired simply because people share the same blood. Sometimes responsibility to history outweighs responsibility to family. If those whispers were true, then the king's unexpected move wasn't delaying Prince Harry's future. It was completely redefining it. Harry might always remain King Charles's son, but whether he could ever again play a meaningful role inside the royal institution had suddenly become an entirely different question. That realization sent shockwaves through royal watchers everywhere. For years, the story had been about whether Prince Harry would return. Now, the real question had become whether there would even be a place left for him if he did. The palace had changed. The public had changed. Prince William's responsibilities had grown. Catherine, Princess of Wales's role had become even more central. A younger generation stood closer to the heart of the monarchy than ever before. Time itself seemed to be quietly closing doors that once appeared impossible to shut. Maybe that's why King Charles's unexpected move felt so devastating to those still hoping for a dramatic reconciliation. It wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. There were no cameras, no emotional speeches, no official declarations, just one quiet decision that, according to endless speculation, completely shifted the balance of the entire royal family. And if that balance has truly changed beyond repair, then Prince Harry's greatest battle may no longer be winning back his father's trust. It may be proving that his royal future still exists at all. Until the palace finally breaks its silence, every unanswered question will keep fueling the biggest mystery of them all. Has the final chapter of Prince Harry's royal story already been written without him ever realizing it?